greatest cavalry charge I ever saw was made by 28 men, 28 riders against 5,000. Now out west they tell stories about Alexander, the boy king, undefeated, conquered half the world and died at 32, and they say there'll never be another like him. I used to believe that. Then I rode east and I heard about a man who fought 70 battles and won every one of them. Every one but the last. And here's the part I can't let go of. Alexander never lost, and his empire was dust inside a generation. This man lost once, and 2,000 years later they still sing about him. His name was Xiang Yu. I was on the riverbank the day it ended. But to understand that day, we have to go back to a boy who refused to learn how to read. Xiang Yu was born into a fallen house. His people had been generals of Chu, a proud southern kingdom, until the first emperor's army swallowed it whole. His grandfather died fighting Qian. The boy grew up an aristocrat with no country, raised by his uncle, carrying a grudge the size of a kingdom. They tried to educate him. It didn't take. The historian Sima Qian, writing barely a century later, close enough to touch the memory, recorded the boy's own words. Writing is good for nothing but recording names. The sword serves against a single man, not worth learning. I will learn the art of defeating 10,000. Defeating 10,000. Most boys who talk like that end up in a ditch. This one grew to be over 6 feet, a giant in that age. Strong enough, the records claim, to lift a bronze cauldron off the ground. And when his uncle taught him the art of war, he learned just enough to grasp the whole of it and then stopped studying. Remember that. It comes back at the end. One day, the first emperor's procession passed through the south. The man who had burned the books and built the wall, the most powerful human being alive. Rolling past in a column of banners and bronze, the crowds knelt. And in that crowd, a young man looked up at the procession, looked the empire dead in the eye, and said, loud enough for his uncle to clap a hand over his mouth, "That man can be taken and replaced." His uncle dragged him away before the words could cost both their heads. But the boy turned out to be right. The first emperor died on the road a few years later, and the empire he built, the one that was supposed to last 10,000 generations, began tearing itself apart. Inside of 3, every county that had ever hated Qin rose up at once. And out of the south rode the grandson of Chu's last great general. He was 24 years old. What happened at Julu is the reason soldiers studied this man for 2,000 years. The last great Qin army, the empire's main force, hundreds of thousands strong, had a rebel city surrounded. Every warlord in the alliance came to relieve it, and every one of them took a look at the Qin lines and made camp at a safe distance for weeks, watching Xiang Yu cross the river to face them. And then he did the thing. He sank his own boats. Everyone. Smashed the cooking pots, burned the shelters, issued each man 3 days of food, and not one meal more. Now, I've lived on the trail most of my life, and I'll tell you the first law of open country. You guard your supplies before you guard your skin. A man without a line back is a dead man walking. He cut his own line, on purpose. 3 days of food, a river at his back, and the largest army on earth in front of him. There was nothing left to think about, and that was the point. An army with nothing to lose doesn't break. 9 engagements in those 3 days. 9. The Qin host, the force that had conquered the entire world he knew, came apart. And the warlords who'd been watching from their walls? Sima Qian says that when they came to Xiang Yu's gate afterward, they entered on their knees. Not one of them dared to look up. He was the master of the world that morning. He hadn't yet turned 27, which brings us to the other man. Because every story like this one has another man. His name was Liu Bang, a peasant, a village constable who liked wine, dodged work, and showed up late to his own battles. Next to Xiang Yu, he looked like nothing at all. But I've known men like both of them, and I'll tell you the difference. Xiang Yu could win a battle against anyone. Liu Bang could lose a battle to anyone, and somehow keep all his men and half of yours by Sunday. One of them collected victories, the other collected people. Out on the range, we had a saying about stock. The strongest animal in the herd isn't the one that's still alive come spring. And one night, at a banquet, the whole thing could have ended. Liu Bang had crossed him, slipped into the capital first, claimed what Xiang Yu considered his. So Xiang Yu summoned him to dinner, 40,000 troops against Liu Bang's 10. The advisors had it all arranged, a signal, a blade, one dead rival between courses. All Xiang Yu had to do was nod. The signal was given 3 times. The sword dance started, circling closer to the guest of honor, and Xiang Yu sat there and let him walk out alive. His advisor told him plainly, "You have just handed away the world." Why didn't he nod? The histories argue about it to this day. Here's what I think, for what a drifter's opinion is worth. The man who learned war to defeat 10,000 couldn't see the glory in killing one unarmed farmer over dinner. It was beneath him. Killing was his trade. Murder was beneath him. That distinction is the most expensive line any man ever drew. 4 years of war followed, and the strangest war you ever heard of. Xiang Yu won it. Battle after battle after battle, he never once stood on a losing field. There's a fight at Pengcheng where he broke an army many times his size with 30,000 riders before lunch. And the whole time he was winning the battles, the map was quietly changing color behind him. Liu Bang lost, retreated, recruited, returned. His talkers peeled away Xiang Yu's allies one by one. His quartermasters kept the grain moving. His generals, men Xiang Yu had dismissed, slighted, or never bothered to notice, took province after province in the spaces between the great man's victories. Xiang Yu was the finest fighter of his age, maybe of any age, and he was losing a war he never lost a battle in. By the winter of 202 BC, the giant stood with his last army in a fortified camp at a place called Gaixia, surrounded, outnumbered, low on food, and that's where the singing started. I was camped in the hills above that valley. Cold night, no moon, and out of the dark from every direction at once, singing the songs of Chu, southern songs, his songs, the ones his soldiers' mothers sang. Coming from the enemy lines, Liu Bang's army had learned them, or filled its ranks with so many southern men it didn't have to. And every Chu soldier in that surrounded camp heard his own homeland singing to him from the wrong side of the field and understood that home had already fallen. They began slipping away into the dark. By hundreds, inside the tent, the histories tell us, Xiang Yu rose in the night, drank, and sang to the 2 souls still loyal beyond question, his lady, Yu, and his horse, Jue. The black stallion that had carried him through every one of the 70, Sima Qian wrote the song down. 4 lines, the death song of the East's Alexander. My strength uprooted mountains. My spirit overshadowed the world. But the times are against me. And Jue will run no more. Jue will run no more. What then can I do? You, my you, what is to become of you? A man writes his death song to his woman and his horse. I've got nothing clever to say about that. Out where I'm from, that's just called getting it right. Before dawn, he mounted Shui and broke out with 800 riders. By the river Huai, there were 100. After a farmer pointed him down the wrong road, the last betrayal, there were 28 men, 5,000 cavalry closing in. And here Xiang Yu turned in the saddle and told his riders something I've chewed on ever since. "Heaven is destroying me," he said. "It was never my battles, and I'll prove it to you before I die." Then he split 28 men into 4 squads and charged 5,000. I watched it from the high ground. I have watched cavalry my whole life. I've seen the best horsemen of 2 worlds. I never saw anything like that, and I never will again. He cut down a commander, took a banner, rallied, charged again, scattered everything in front of him. He lost 2 men. 2 out of 28 against 5,000, he was right. The battles were never the problem, and it didn't matter at all. The charge carried him to the Wu River, and there, waiting at the bank, was a ferryman with a boat, 1 boat, the only one on that water. The ferryman knew his face. "Cross, my lord," he said. "The Southland, Jiangdong, is still yours. It's small, but it's a kingdom's worth of men. Cross the river, start again." It was real. The door was open. Alexander never got a door like that. And Xiang Yu laughed. 8,000 sons of Jiangdong had crossed this river with him, he said. Not one was coming home. With what face would I stand before their fathers? Then he did the thing I'll carry the rest of my days. He dismounted and gave his horse to the ferryman. "Now listen, I've seen men sell their horses, lose them, gamble them away. I've seen men put a horse down on the trail and weep doing it. But a man who hands his horse away whole to a stranger with the enemy in sight, that man has finished with the ground it walks on. There's no plainer way a horseman says goodbye to the world." He turned back on foot, sword out, toward 5,000 riders. And near the end, bleeding from more wounds than a man should hold, he spotted a face he knew in the enemy ranks. An old acquaintance riding now for the other side. "I hear they've put gold on my head," Xiang Yu called out to him. "We were friends once. Let me do you a kindness." And he finished it himself. 5 officers split the reward. It took 5. No one man could claim the whole of him. He was 30 years old, 2 years younger than Alexander. So step back. I'll tell you what I saw. I saw a man win every battle and lose the war, beaten not by a better soldier, but by a better shepherd. I saw the door home standing open, and a man close it himself, because walking through it would have made him less than what he was. I saw the West's great conqueror die undefeated in a palace, and his empire shatter before his body cooled. And I saw the East's great conqueror die defeated on a riverbank, and his story outlasts the dynasty of the man who beat him. Even Sima Qian, who plainly loved him, you can feel it in every line, closed the chapter with a shake of the head. To the very end, the historian wrote, he blamed heaven and never understood it was himself. The boy who learned just enough of war to grasp the whole of it, and then stopped studying. The West remembers the man who never lost. The East remembers the man who lost once and chose the riverbank over the boat. 1,000 years later, poets were still writing that they'd take him, dead at the Wu River, over most men living. The histories don't say what became of the horse. The legends do. They say Zhui wouldn't board the ferry, stood at the water's edge, and wouldn't leave the bank. I believe the legends. Ride with me.